Hey guys, welcome back to one of the very interesting episodes. This is about products. This is what everyone really needs. When you're listing in your, let's say, your app or website, then this is what it is all about. So we are going to build that today. There are a couple of dependencies that we are going to set, which makes it more interesting because we had been only setting only maybe one relationship before this, but in this case, if you look at the design that we have right now, products are having a relationship with the product lines and also with the categories. So categories is nothing but, let's say you land on a e-commerce website or something, then you will see that there are multiple categories available from which you can choose what are the product types of product that you want to see. So that is what the categories are all about. So we are going to build this all of the products listing system along with adding the category search and everything. So that's what we are going to do. So let's get in right away. So to start with, let me show you whatever we are already having. We had built the product lines already. Then we are going to build the new thing, which is the product. So to get started, let's create the categories. So for that, I'm gonna bring in the category side already. Make model, and it's going to be called category. This is the first thing that we're going to add to list all the categories available. So we need the migration, we need the factory, we need the controller, as well as what else is needed. You need the factory and the seeder. Yep. And then this is going to be an API controller as well. So this is going to bring us the factory, the migration is created, the seeder is created, controller is also created. So as a first step, we will go and create the migration needed, maybe. So I have the user factory. Okay, we have the product factory. I don't see a product factory. Okay, sorry, we were building the category factory. So for that, we are going to have these three categories created. So it needs couple of, in the migration we are going to add a couple of fields. So those are going to be table of, let me just grab that because we had been doing this all along. I don't think we need to do that again and again. So category is going to have name and details, couple of fields. So I'm going to bring that in right away. It's going to be we are going to have category is going to have name and details. I'm going to have table of type field, which is going to be tiny text. We don't need to consume too much space for that, so that's the reason I'm going to keep it as tiny text. And maybe I'm also going to keep this unique. So this is going to be a unique field. The next part is to have the details also that can remain as text, a large text. So I'm going to keep it as details. And that's the two fields which we need. Also, let's add it in our factory. So name, I think it's going to be name, and name we are going to, in the factory we are going to generate that using the seeder. Oh no, at least using okay, maybe I don't need a factory there. I'm going to directly use the seeder itself because we know what are the factories, or at least the values that we need. So I'm going to directly grab that and use it. Category is going to create these many, so maybe I don't need this. So I'm just going to keep the factory as is, but I'm going to use the seeder to build the values, which is going to be the master data. So I will have to bring the category model, and then I'm going to bring men, women category, lifestyle, and perfume. So these are the different categories. Perfumes maybe. So these are the different categories under which the e-commerce site is going to be built around. So these are the ones. So I can directly now do migration, or at least a seeding and migration, because we have the categories table created. So let's go to the database seeder and let's add category seeder class that's going to create the categories, as well as migrate the table, as well as create the seed the category values which we added, right? So I'm gonna do a migrate fresh seed. If you know the command php artisan, migrate fresh seed will delete the existing tables as well as the values, and then remigrate everything. So this is good for development, but when you go to production, you should make sure that you are maintaining different migration versions. So I'm going to do this right now. It's going to delete all the existing ones. It threw me something without a key length. So in categories, I have a name unique. So that means I need to have a, let me just go back to the migration table. Okay, it says that it needs a length. If it has to be unique, maybe. So maybe I'll just keep it as maybe I will not keep this unique over here. Maybe I can handle it from the middleware. So I'm just going to keep this as is, and let's try it once more. So that just creates the table. Let's go and check, refresh. This is an existing table structure. I just refreshed. Now you can see that the categories are created and the values are inserted: men, women, lifestyle, and perfumes. So I just want to make sure that this, if let's say I give it as a text and then give it a, okay, maybe I'll have to keep it as string, and if I make it value as category, I don't need more than 15 characters, I guess. And then if I make it unique, let's see what happens. Let's just run it once more. It's reseeding everything. Yep, that worked. So I guess that's another way of doing it. Instead of keeping it as tiny int, we are keeping that as a string. Again, that's defining a tiny int for you, tiny string for you. So that works. So maybe we will keep this so that our database will have unique values, even if let's say your controller part validation is missed. So that's another way of making sure that the values gets populated properly. So that's done. We don't need the factory. We already seeded, and then we had this made available on the controller. So the next part is to actually bring at least have the endpoints defined. So I'm going to implement the values and then point to the in the router the functions needed for the endpoint. So let's just start with index, where we're going to return all the categories. So for that, because we don't need to restrict the categories, it is available for all users, so we don't need to keep it within any of the middleware. So that's how category is going to be. So we are going to not limit that. So all I can do is category can just call all, which is going to return all the categories. So if we have more, then maybe we can add a pagination later, but then I'm not expecting too many categories right now. I'm just going to keep it as all, and then I'm just going to return the categories. So this is my category, return. I'll do step by step, return categories. So let's define this endpoints first. Let's go to our routes, go to API, and I'm going to include it somewhere over here. It's because this is not a restricted endpoint, so we can have it right now like this itself, where I can just call a get, and I say categories, not limited to any middleware, so I'm just directly exposing that. Maybe I'll grab, maybe I just need to keep it collapsed so that we can view a little more. And then I'm just gonna say category controller index anybody can view. So that's the first endpoint which we are going to define, categories. And let's go and check whether we are able to retrieve that. I already have the endpoints defined in my Postman. So let's just do, okay, we need to do run the server, php artisan serve is going to run the server. Now let's check. That's it. So we are receiving all the categories. Maybe it will be better if we define at least keep the keep one transformer as well. So I'm gonna maybe use one of the transformers, copy paste, and then rename that to category transformer, because I don't think it needs the date part, which is something we can avoid, because category does not need a date. It's just categories, and you don't really need to track on what day a category was created or something. So we are going to pass category, maybe let's collapse this, and category ID details, these fields were the same, and then let's call this as category. So that's also done, and we don't need anything as an includes, so we don't need an includes for this. So I'm just going to remove that, and we are not having we could have avoided that date timestamp. So but anyway, this is not going to return any datetime anymore. So I'm going to transform even this. So I'm just going to call this toss response and call the collection, pass the collection within this, and then I can call the transformer new category transformer. So that's it. So now it should work with the transformer, and you can see that it's only returning the transform values. And the next part is maybe I can avoid sending, if there are no values, then better I can say categories dot, if it is empty. Okay, I'm coming again back from the .NET world, so that's the reason I'm using all that dot and all. So I can just throw not found exception, which will make it instead of returning an empty array, it's going to return this exception, or at least it's going to return transformed after the exception is captured by the middleware. It's going to return as a proper response. So if that is going to happen when there are no values available. So at least we have the categories made available now. Let's also do the same stuff for show part, which is again going to be not restricted at all. So instead of this, I might just return the, I might just pass the ID, and then we can do a find $ID. So it's going to get us a category. If it is existing, we can say we can, if it does not exist, then we can throw not found exception, but maybe also pass the value more not found TP exception. So category does not exist for the ID, and then if it exists, then we can pass it, but we can always pass it as an item. So that's the transformation we might do, and this should really work. And also here I forgot to add an error message, categories does not exist. So that's what we are going to show. And let's try out this endpoint. So before that, let's go to the router and add even this endpoint. Then we might just have to pass the category ID. So I'm just going to say ID what, and then it's going to be under show. So we can now try. I already have defined an endpoint, at least here, and let's try that now. Should work. So let's try something else. 3 that returns lifestyle. If you pass something which does not exist, it's going to say category does not exist for this ID. It's showing all of these debugs because we have enabled debugging. If as soon as you go to production, you can maybe disable this and it's not going to show all of these, but it'll just maybe give you these two in the response. So that's also done. So show is also completed. Let's go back to our view controller again so that we can create the other two update and delete, create, update and delete. These 3 things are pending there. Where is my view controller? So collapse this. So we have the store to start with. Store is very simple. We do a validation initially, and so we can create the validator, which is validator with the facade one, make, and then we pass the request, and then we define the rules. So we have the name, which cannot be empty, so that's the first rule. Required field, and it should be string, and it has to be, oh my god, it has to be unique. And on table categories, on column name has to be unique. I don't need any of the other ones. And we can also have the minimum of 3 values for the categories, and maybe let's not limit the max, because okay, again, database is max limited, so we can also say that it's limited to 15. So that's the first validation, and then comes the details. That's the next one. It just needs to be a required field. I'm just adding the category, but making sure that and max we can limit it to 255 something, or maybe lesser than that, 100. So min is again, we might need a min, otherwise anybody can send anything. Min of 3 is fine, and that's my validation. And this I can always return if validation fails. I can just say if it fails, I can return response JSON and pass the errors. As the message, the validator errors. So those are the things I will return, and maybe make it as a 400 bad request. So that's my response. So let's try this out. Let's try to create. I already have the endpoint for create, and it's kept under the admin, because admin is the one who's going to create categories maybe, and it will be allowed to be used by all the store owners or something for their whenever they are creating the products. So I have the post of categories, and it has the name and details. Maybe if I, let's say, delete one of them, it's going to throw, maybe it'll always say 404 not found. That means I need to have this endpoint created. So let's go back, go to the API dot routes, API routes, and I'm gonna include it within the super admin side. So I might just create something like post. I can just say categories, nothing more than that. It's creation of categories, and it's not within admin, so I can just say category controller store. So that's my post. I guess this should work because it's going to come through admin slash categories. Admin, okay, it's products. Maybe let's add that because I already had it, but you need not have it within products or something. Categories can be used for anything else also, not just for products. So I'm just gonna keep it like as is, whatever I had created. So this should ideally now work. Let me remove these two, at least this one. User is not logged in, so I need to log in as an admin right now. So let me just pick up the first user. That's the admin. I might just log in using that admin, and let's see. So that's a token generated. I'm gonna use that over here. That's common for inherited across all the endpoints. So now I can try creating again. So boom, it's failing. It says argument must be of type array null given. So where is the issue? Line number factory make. Okay, I guess let's check what is wrong. Let me go back to category controller. I think this is the issue. Okay, now let's try. Yep, details field is required, so works. Now it should not give an error, it's passing. So now let's continue and build the remaining side of things needed. So category is built. Now I need to save that category. It's very simple now. Just call the category create function and just pass. Maybe I can directly pass the request itself, all the values. This should ideally create it, and then I can always respond. So maybe it's better to keep it in a try catch, otherwise you're not going to see what the real error is. HTTP exception, throw that, and then keep this within, and then finally let's do a respond over here. I'm gonna do a response array, pass the message, as category created successfully, and with ID being the category ID, categories ID. That's it. So this should be fine, and I can now return dollar this. Okay, maybe I can do a response JSON and then pass this response and say 201 because it's creation of a category. So this should work now. So let's see. I have this already. Electronics is something I'm going to create. It's not there. If you go and check in your database, categories does not have electronics. I'm going to do that. Boom, add name to be filled property, allow mass assignment. Okay, so this is the interesting part. I tried to do an assignment like this and it failed. Something like request.all I tried. So for that, making that happen, I need to create the assignment, mass assignment, what I can make it as fillable. So that's something you might have to do to make it mass assignable, but all of the fields should not be made as mass assignable. Okay, let this go to the top. And name and details are the two mass assignable parameters. So these two, and then also maybe I can keep protected table name, just in case if a table name is different than whatever is generated from let's say if you create something which is having a different name, then you can change it over here. Otherwise by default this will work. But if that if let's say you created the table as category or something, this is not going to identify. That's when you might have to keep this as this table parameter has to be kept here. So now let me again try it. Now this time it should allow creation successful. So let's refresh and see, and electronics is added. So the next part is to update. Let's do that. I'm just maybe I wanted it as electronic, then electronic. So what will I do now? So for that, I'm going to bring all of these logic. Pretty much the validation is going to remain almost the same, but in a different way. So if I need to validate this, first thing is that I need to check whether the request has name or not. So if request has name coming through, come on, then I'm going to do the first level of validation and see whether name is there or not, if whether it is mapping to these requirements. If it does, then if it does not, I will fail it. If not, I will do a setting of that value, which is okay. Before that, I need to pick the category, and even before that, I need to get the ID of the category. So I am going to fetch it something similar to this. So category I need to fetch. So that's the first thing maybe we can already do before even we check all these validations, whether this category is existing or not. If it does, then that is what, when I'm going to set that value of name. If name is passed, I'm going to set that value. And that's it. The first part is done. Similarly, I can do it for details as well, if detail value is received. So that's the next step. Instead of this name, I'm going to say details and set the value. Also, I'm going to uncomment this and comment this one. Maybe I can delete this one, and even this I can delete because specific validations are only needed. So those are the two things which I am going to validate. So name and details, those are set. Next check is the saving part itself. So category I can save. I can always do a save like this, but even before I save, I can always do a check like whether category has any values. That can be checked using is dirty check dirty. If it is dirty only, then you save it, otherwise just leave it. And that's pretty much the save part. But then again, save can be within a try catch. Try HTTP exception, comment and comment this one, keep this within this. So that's pretty much. And if there is nothing to be saved, then I can always, but again it's not going to happen because you are checking for each and everything in the validation. So there is no way that you're going to send okay, it can happen that you send the same values, then it might not be dirty. So but again, let's not worry too much there. So I'm just going to say response. Again, it's going to be similar. I'm going to grab the same create part as well. Same message response I'm going to use and then modify it. Response category is updated successfully, and I can just say okay, category ID I can just use, and it's going to be 200 because it's more of an update. I can just respond back like this. So let's try this one right now. So it's going to be request.name, it's checking, request.details, it's checking, and it's setting the value. If dirty, it's trying to save, and if that's it. So pretty much what we need to do. Let's go back to this guy and try to see whether this works. So I'm gonna only do a update of name, and I guess that ID is 6 not 5, so it should 404 not found. So we don't again have the endpoint defined. So let's go to our api.php and let's add one put, and this should be update. Now it should work. Okay, again, it's products categories 5. Did I save it? Why is it 404? Admin products categories. Is that because this is not existing, but we have a 5 here? Let's go back. Put is here. Category controller. I think it should update itself. Why is it not working? Let's go back in category controller. Update. Okay, that's funny. Post, put. Function is called update and we are passing a ID. Okay, maybe that I did not pass the ID here, that's a reason. ID should work now. Yep, the name has already been taken, so it's not allowing me to update. So maybe I'll keep it as electronic. So validation is working now. Let's refresh and check. Electronic, and it's updated with electronic. Yep, that's what I wanted to show here. And then let's go with delete right now. That's the last bit pending for this one. Maybe even before I start, I'm going to add this endpoint for delete, and it's going to be under the function destroy. So that's added. Let's go to our view controller, or at least the view controller. I keep saying view controller because I was more working on iOS where we have view controllers. So we have to do something similar to start with, where we do a fetch of this ID. If it does not exist, then we return the error, not found exception. So this has to be $ID, and if it is there, it's going to do that. If not, I'm going to try deleting it. So let's do a try catch. HTTP exception, uncomment, and then I can directly do a category delete. That's it, pretty simple. It's going to delete, and again we can show a message. Once deleted, it's the same response message. So response category deleted successfully, and it's going to be 200. I can, because it will be deleted already, maybe I just use the ID directly, then say it's deleted. So we are going to try deleting the same ID number 5 that we created here. We can try deleting that. So 5 category deleted successfully, and let's go and refresh. So that's already deleted. So that's the first bit of category creation, which is complete. Now let's get into products right now, where we are going to associate this category along with the product line which we had created in the last episode. So let's do that now.